Hey guys, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. An exciting end to the week. We just received production results out from Mara and Cipher mining. That's enabled Anthony to put together a top 4 comparative table, comparing and contrasting the results we've seen from the heavy hitters in the Bitcoin mining space so far for the month of August. We're going to be talking about that in addition to a strategic hire at CleanSpark, plus our upcoming trip to New York and the H.C. Wainwright Conference. A lot to talk about. Before we get into it, take a second, hit the like button, guys. Big help to myself and the channel. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below which of these 4 miners you're currently holding and your top pick of the bunch. With that being said, let's get into today's video. All right, guys, Friday afternoon, away we go. Another double header on the power mining analysis platform today. We hosted the head of hardware, Lauren Lin, this morning from Luxor Technologies. Some very interesting dialogue. She gave us her top ASIC recommendation, both new and used, and some insights into the SealMiner A2, which we've been eagerly awaiting. In addition to that, we got some big production updates out today from the heavy hitters in the space, Mara and Cipher, coming out with their August production results. You've put together one of your comparison tables, the big 4 here. Those two in addition to Riot and CleanSpark. We're going to be talking about all of that in today's video. Plus our upcoming New York trip next week. So a great end to the week in terms of excitement around here at PMA. However, Bitcoin itself giving up some of the earlier gains.
Yeah, and Bitcoin today had breached 113,000. And bear in mind today's options day, but it drastically dropped then all the way back down to 110,000 in literally minutes, straight after the opening of the market. It looks like it's recovering a little bit now. And if you look at we talked about this yesterday about the lows, we're seeing sort of like higher lows. So maybe we'll continue this upward trend through the weekend and into next week. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the start of the week there, 108,000, we're at 110, nearly 111 now, so that's quite positive. From a mining perspective, it's a mixed bag today, obviously with the volatility of Bitcoin. American BTC having a great day, but again, it's like, literally a few days after they IPO'd, up 14% today, but that's been extremely volatile, that stock. Quite a lot of volume as well, nearly 9 million shares volume. DMG having another good day, as is Bitdeer, but Bitdeer probably one of the miners in terms of having challenging performances over the last month or so. Now it's not really, share price hasn't really sparked as well as some of the other share prices. Go down to the sort of like those that are in the red. Hut at 2.5, Cores at 1.87. It's not like extremes at either side. So expected with the volatility of Bitcoin.
Yeah, kind of a neutral end to the week. I know our accounts were up sizably this morning. They were down handsomely as well, and now they're kind of balancing out in the middle. So we'll see where the market ends up today. But as you say, options expiration Friday here. A lot of times we will see some interesting trading. Now, moving into the production updates, first and foremost, we have Mara. They came out with a slight beat versus prior month, putting up just north of 700 Bitcoin. They also talk about some of those strategic acquisitions they've made in their discussion or dialogue portion of the update as well. We've talked about this evolving power balancing, load balancing strategy, working alongside HPC data centers. Looking forward to getting more information next week, actually, at the H.C. Wainwright Conference directly from Salman Khan.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's got a presentation from the company and also from on a panel as well. So really looking forward to both of those. In terms of the monthly updates, they managed to produce 208 blocks, which is pretty good considering the hash rate, global hash rate itself increased by 6% month over month. And when you see hash rate go up like that, the difficulty is going to be affected and therefore production comes down. Mara were actually able to mine the same amount, literally exactly, as on a daily basis as they did in July, even though you account for that 6% difficulty adjustment. So mined 705 Bitcoin. They managed to grow their operational hash rate up from 58.9 to 59.4. So there's half an exahash added to that there, about 1% increase there. Operational power increased slightly. They're at just over 1118 megawatts at the moment. Efficiency reduced from 18.3 to 19. Maybe the mix of the machines that they were using on the site. Bear in mind, Mara have got over 330,000 machines. So you are going to see efficiency change when they're swapping miners in and out from an operational basis. In terms of mining per exahash, 14.9, that's an improvement. We managed to get from the website the average operational hash rate, which was 47.4. Remember, a lot of the miners include that in their update. Mara don't include it in their operational update, but they do have it on the website. So for future recognition, I'll include that there, and it make their figures look more realistic compared to the peer miners. In terms of the HODL, this is where it gets interesting. In July, they had 50,639 Bitcoin. They don't normally sell any Bitcoin, so adding 705 to that gets you just over 51,000. But you can see the total for the end of August of 52,477. They went to the market when the Bitcoin price had dropped into that sort of $108, $109 range and purchased more Bitcoin there. So they've increased the Bitcoin to that total now. And if you look at the value in terms of dollars, remember the Bitcoin valuation for August is based on a Bitcoin price of just over 108,000, whereas in July it was based on 115,000. So even with nearly 2,000 more Bitcoin in their treasury, the actual value of their HODL has actually reduced from 5.8 billion to 5.6 billion. And the final metric we like to look at is what does that Bitcoin HODL mean compared to the market capitalization? Well, the HODL at the moment is worth more than the entire company. And that'll have a few people scratching heads, especially when we've announced they've got a number of sites that they own now, nearly 70% of sites they own, and 330,000 machines. Now, they do have some convertible notes as well, debt on the balance sheet, between 2 and 3 billion in debt there. But that just goes to show not really any premium given to Mara for the fact that they've got the second largest HODL of any public company in North America.
Yeah, not any recognition whatsoever. Salman Khan specifically mentioned that this is not a Bitcoin treasury focused company. This is an operating company. I know you put up a poll today. Interesting results, Anthony. I think part of the issue here is the market just doesn't really understand what Mara is at this point in time, what the vision is. Again, we're looking forward to getting more clarity on that next week. But based on the results of your poll, you can tell that the market is kind of split on how to value this company.
Absolutely. And if you get a chance to go and vote in the poll, go to my account on X and you'll be able to see that poll there. It'll be there for the next 15 hours. Set it out this morning so you have an opportunity to go and vote there. Really, this is more of a discussion poll, so we want to see what the results are, and then we can start discussing as to, why there is such a differentiation in people's understanding of what Mara's doing at the moment, and then maybe we can address that with the company themselves, get them on the podcast to understand how maybe to better communicate what some of the things they're doing. But this was a real interesting highlight because they're doing so many strategies. People aren't really understanding which is their primary goal going forward, and that's the challenge at the moment.
Well, and you even asked me, I had said treasury company even after that interview. It's hard in my head to understand if you held the second most Bitcoin in the world, you're mining it, you're keeping all of what you're mining, and you're purchasing more off the open market. Plus, you're now using it to generate revenue or yield through staking opportunities. It sounds very treasury company-esque to me, but again, we'll get more clarity there. The next one we're looking forward to learning more about, again in person from Tyler Page next week, Cipher Mining. This has been a real darling in the space. We've covered extensively the opportunity they have at Barbara Lake and obviously Black Pearl, along with some of these other sites down the road. They came out with their production result for the month. And I got to say, these images that they're sending out of their data center, those are looking pretty slick.
Yeah, and they're real images apparently, Bryce, not not AI generated ones. So we've had that before with the likes of Soluna Holdings. The site looks really good there, 150 megawatts already activated, and the rest of the site there ready to deliver either Bitcoin mining or high performance compute. And my money's on high performance compute. Now, if you look at what they mined during the month, they mined 236 Bitcoin. What Cipher do when they put their updates out, they include the equivalent Bitcoin that they receive from power credits, and that was effectively about 5 Bitcoin. So their Bitcoin mine total 241. It's not really Bitcoin they receive. They get an adjustment on future power bills. So it's a credit, a future credit. So we always make sure in our tables we put the actual Bitcoin mine. That was 236. They sold 42, so they added most of the Bitcoin. Effectively 196 Bitcoin to their balance sheet, taking their total to 1,414. They increased their monthly hash rate to 23, and their fleet efficiency has also increased. Now that's at 17.3. And if you think about the two miners ahead of them at the moment, you've got the likes of CleanSpark, just over 16 joules per terahash, and you've got IREN, the leader at the moment, on 15 joules. Cipher coming in really, really close on that there in third position at the moment. But we know there's a number of other miners out there like Hive Digital also looking to close in on the CleanSpark and IREN efficiency rates there. And having that low efficiency gives them a real opportunity to get a really good margin. Now, we had a question today from Cipher in terms of why is there updates? Considering one of the big miners there, they don't seem to mine as much Bitcoin as other miners. Well, if you managed to watch the podcast with Tyler, we asked that very, very question a few weeks ago. And the reason is that at some of their sites, the power costs are a little bit higher. So they'll only use the power when it makes appropriate to use that and when they're going to make profit and decent margins. So they do curtail far more often than other miners, and they want to achieve the best margin, and that might mean having lower production. From Tyler's perspective, it's no use mining Bitcoin just for the sake of mining it. You want to mine the Bitcoin and make a profit. Now, just let's go quickly through the actual operational update. If you look at where we are in August, 236 Bitcoin compared to 208 in July. That's a nice increase of 13%. Power sales about the same, 6 in July, 5 in August. Operational hash rate increased by 13%. That's where you can see the increase in Bitcoin mined. Operational power, end of the month, 521 megawatts. Efficiency for July, 19.2, come down to 17.3. That's a great move. And that's all those machines. If you think about, they've just added nearly 3 exahash of new machines into Black Pearl, and that's brought that efficiency down there. They sold 58 Bitcoin as opposed to 52 during the month there, and they've increased, as I say, they increased their hold to 1,414. That's got a value of 151.5 million based on the closing Bitcoin price at the end of August. And if you look at Bitcoin value to market cap today, 5.4% as opposed to 7.7%. A couple of reasons for that there. One is obviously the Bitcoin price is not the same price as it was at the end of July. And also market capitalizations have changed in that period as well there. So, but overall, another solid update from Cipher Mining. They do tend to, get some of the best margins out there. We know that they can attract really low power rates. Tyler was saying that their blended power rate across their sites is 3.1 cents. Not many miners can get to that level.
No, they certainly can't. We did see Riot eke out a win in terms of power pricing last month, but you brought up a very interesting point there about the average power price versus production. These two metrics almost counterproductive or competing with each other, as a lot of miners, like you say, will opt for greater margins, almost like what we heard from Jamie McCaverty and Cormant, really looking for the best margin profile or return profile on their machines. Other miners will opt for the highest utilization, the most overall production. You kind of get to determine which is best ultimately. Now, the next portion here, we wanted to switch over to CleanSpark quickly. An interesting observation. They recently announced they may be looking at new verticals for their power. hinting or suggesting HPC AI. Now, as the good analysts we are, Anthony, we went out there, we started doing some due diligence. We determined many of the sites they have are really not set up for the large scale co-location style of contract based on their location, based on the megawatts, the footprint, the size of facility. However, we did take a closer look at some of these smaller facilities in Georgia, specifically around Atlanta. Potentially CleanSpark using these as a trial, kind of like the Wulf Den or what Bitdeer has in Singapore, or potentially a smaller, fully vertically integrated data center like a Hive or maybe a Bit Digital. Interestingly enough, CleanSpark now the very next day has come out. They've not only tweeted about the amount of power they have in Georgia, they've actually pinned this to their profile. So I'm wondering if this could be a little bit of foreshadowing for some remarks Matt Schultz may have next week in New York.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll probably get a clearer picture next week. But obviously, interesting, we already covered this in our podcast yesterday. So um, is this old news to us or new news to them? I don't know. But yeah, it's interesting that after we've podcasted, they've come out and now talked about the Georgia state as being very, very good for HPC as they start to look at how to utilize their power going forward. That's a 180-degree turnaround from what they were saying literally a month ago when they were fully focused as a pure Bitcoin miner.
Yeah, it certainly was. And speaking of new news and a 180-degree turnaround, our good friend Ben Briggs, for the longest time, adamant that CleanSpark is not paying him. There's no affiliation. He's now picked up a job at CleanSpark as their senior financial analyst. So talk about a 180-degree turn or outlook. It'll be great that we can now get information directly from CleanSpark via Ben Briggs or Rex, and we wanted to congratulate him on the position.
Yeah, it's good to hear that. Ben's been doing a lot of analysis on CleanSpark and pretty much solely on CleanSpark, to be honest with you, and therefore it makes more sense for CleanSpark to sort of like keep him on board there and continue doing what he does. He does a lot of inputs, does a lot of videos. Whether he can still maintain his social media stuff and that presence will hopefully be able to continue that because it does provide a lot of insight out there, as do a lot of other analysts covering other companies. We tend to focus on a variety of companies across the board. Remember, there's over 30 public companies. We probably cover about 15 or 16 of them. It's a real challenge.
Yeah, the number of videos we put out on an annual basis is getting a little bit excessive. With that being said, though, I did want to mention Ben Briggs did formerly mention on Twitter that if CleanSpark ever did change their tune and get into the HPC AI, he actually would sell his shares in favor of Cipher due to many of the points we've highlighted on the channel, including their bench strength, their expertise, and their site. So it'll be interesting to see if he follows through with that one. As he's now employed at CleanSpark. Now, moving along here, you've put together a great comparative table, again, in the interest of looking at multiple miners across multiple metrics. We're comparing the top four, the big four here. You may say, well, why not IREN? They haven't come out with their production result yet for the month. However, we do have four of the heavy hitters here: Cipher, CleanSpark, Mara, Riot. As an expert analyst in the space, Anthony, 25 years under your belt as an accountant, what numbers pop out of this page?
Yeah, I mean, it's you've got some of the big hitters here. I mean, Iron, yeah, haven't released their results. They would make obviously, a dent into the table here, and Hive Digital also are a regular performer in terms of operational updates. They tend to punch above their weight. Remember, Hive and Bitfarms last 4 years were literally one and two in all the monthly updates. This year it's been a different ball game. We've had the likes of IREN, Riot, and CleanSpark holding those top three positions there. And if you look at the Riot and CleanSpark columns there and scroll down to the Bitcoin mine per exahash, you're talking about wafer thin differences. CleanSpark able to achieve 15.17 Bitcoin per exahash. Riot 15.19, so slightly pipping them there. Be interesting to see what IREN bring out. Riot are literally a hair width behind IREN on a year-to-date basis, and CleanSpark the same difference behind Riot. So it's really close to the top there. And actually, what we've seen this year is we've seen a lot more consistency, even with the likes of, Hive obviously still having great monthly updates, DMG as well. So there's 5 or 6 miners who can be interchangeable if, for instance, one miner has a particular bad month. So hash rate per, Bitcoin per hash rate is one there. HODL obviously is an important statistic for a number of these miners there. Mara's impressive growth from 50,000 to 52,477. That's a nice increase there. 5.6 billion of treasury Bitcoin on the balance sheet there. And, as we said before, when the market capitalization isn't as high as their Bitcoin hodl, people be scratching their heads about this. CleanSpark and Riot both have significant hodls, and you can see their percentages there as well. The final thing I want to say is the power credits. This is what is the game changer for Riot. In these 4 months of the ERCOT period, they're able to, when power prices spike, they can switch off and they can sell power back to the grid. And last month they had a great month where they were able to sell, over $13 million of power back to the grid and get power credits. This month it was $16.1 million, and that equates to 146 Bitcoin. And if you add that to its Bitcoin mined, that puts them over 600 Bitcoin for the month, with a hash rate of about 40% less than CleanSpark. So a really good month for Riot. As we've talked about Cipher, they also receive power credits, not in the same level as Riot do. And to get those power credits at that level there, you have to have like a significant PPA. Riot have got one of the biggest ones at the Rockdale facility, 345 megawatt PPA, which gives them that arbitrage then to make a number of choices when the timing is right. And they've done that over the last few years. I remember in August a couple of years ago, I think it was $31 million of credits in 1 month. This year they're having a pretty good year as well, and let's see what September brings, which is the end of the 4CP period for these companies in Texas.
Yeah, the 4 concurrent peaks there, June, July, August, September. So 1 month left of that season. So here's hoping for another big month of power credits and potentially an HPC colo announcement from Riot. Now, another announcement we're excited to hear or waiting to hear tonight, 5:15 Eastern Time, we'll find out if good old Sailor and Strategy has been accepted into the S&P 500. They do meet all the requirements. However, they don't give advanced warning on how many companies they're going to be swapping in or which companies will be joining this indice. But this is the most prestigious indice in the world. We've talked about the importance with the Bitcoin miners domiciling in the US to get into some of the smaller indices. The S&P 500 is where the big boys play, and being included in here guarantees you tremendous amount of regular inflows or buying into your ticker.
Yeah, this is the top 500 companies in America in one fund. And, if you buy in that fund, you're effectively buying a part of every company in that fund. And even in the United Kingdom, if you go to investment analysts who help you with, well, like maybe wealth management, and you ask for a suggestion where to put in your money, many times the S&P 500 is used as like the benchmark. If you go back over the last 50 years, there's not many years where the S&P hasn't been positive. And I think, average gains are in double digits, literally throughout that period. So a very, very well known and recognized exchange around the world. Let's wait out till 5:15 Eastern Time to see if the announcement is positive for Strategy.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is it's definitely not looking like it's being priced into the shares based on today's price movement. You can see Strategy has given up quite a bit of market cap over the last few months, really downtrending since July. The nice thing with the S&P and some of these indices, not only is it regular dollar cost averaging from pension funds, retirement funds, but generally they're not selling this stuff on a short-term basis. These are long-term funds, long-term holds. So you get some of that in institutional investor base in your stock. Going to be interested to see there, obviously hoping that they do make the inclusion. The final piece we wanted to follow up on, yesterday we reported unfortunately about a 5% increase in global difficulty. Came in very close to that. We're also seeing pressure on both hash price and global difficulty on that 7-day, continuing to just go higher.
Yeah, the hash rate's been heading towards on a 7-day moving average close to that 1,000 exahash. It's pulled back slightly to 980 exahash there, so maybe the hash rate's dropped a bit today to get that average down there. But we had a previous adjustment close to 5% yesterday. It's too early to really say what's going to happen on September the 19th, which is the next day that will have an adjustment. At the moment, it's saying it will go down by 4.4, but it's too far ahead really to make that. This is really volatile at the start of the 14-day period and towards the end of the 14-day period. So a lot can happen in that period in time there. At the moment, it's taking just over 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 27 seconds to mine each block, which suggests they're going to have to make it slightly easier. But let's see how this plays out over the next week to 10 days before we have another assessment where we think it's going to be. Hash price, as you rightly say, has been dropping. If you remember, back in the sort of like second week of August, it was over $60. Today, it's lower than $52. That's $8 per petahash per day for these mining companies. That's a lot of revenue off the table. And when you consider the fees are only at 1.35%, margins are going to be squeezed quite tightly for miners. Further advocating towards what we've heard a number of CEOs say, that really this last run now to the next halving is probably the end game for a lot of these public miners, in the fact that if you're not really making significant profits to cover all your costs, carrying on through the next halving is going to be an even bigger challenge.
Yeah, it most definitely is. We rarely even talk about transaction fees anymore on the channel. They've become so irrelevant to the miner's revenue profile. Again, the whole design with Bitcoin, this was a peer-to-peer transaction system. However, it's now turned more into a store of wealth, and specifically a corporate balance sheet store of wealth. Not a lot of transactions maybe compared to the initial Satoshi vision there. With that being said, you guys, we're going to be packing our bags up tonight. We're headed off tomorrow to New York. We've got the Jets season opener, your first NFL game on Sunday. Then we're going to be at the conference. We've got an event at PubKey as well on Tuesday night. So if you're in the New York area, you want to meet up with us, we'd love to go for a beer or a chat, talk about Bitcoin, and learn a little bit more about your story. Let us know in the comment section below. Hit the like button. Feel free to subscribe. We'll see you back here on Monday.